Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Funk Chronicles. I'm your host, Dr. Turk Logan from Logan Communication and the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. Now, I have to warn you, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, I have three dynamite brothers on the show, and this might turn into a comedy show. So if it does, it's okay. With me today, I have three great brothers that I know very well. Commissioner Joey Williams from the city of Dayton, State Representative Fred Strahorn, and my dear friend, Mr. Keith Harrison, formerly and still with the group Phaso in Dayton, Ohio. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Good,
Great,
good to see you, Terry.
Good to see you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always.
Good to see you.
Always.
We are heavily and actively involved in the Funk Museum Hall of Fame and trying to make this thing come to fruition. There is a component in the program for education. Commissioner, would you talk a little bit about the educational piece for this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I was fortunate enough to attend a meeting a couple Saturdays ago, and I was just very impressed with the group that was assembled. There was some board members, plus some folks who were specifically associated with the education committee. And what I liked about it was, it's one thing to have a Funk Museum Hall of Fame where you can celebrate all the greatness of the great musicians, both from Dayton, Ohio and around the country, but to find a way to energize young people by helping them to get involved in music and learn about music and really to open their minds to what they can do in the future. I just found that really exciting, and the energy that was in the room, if there's a way that we can duplicate that within the Funk Museum Hall of Fame, I think it's going to be a huge hit.
And you're right on target. Representative Strahorn, you've been active in politics for a number of years. I see you on television all the time. One of these days you could probably run for governor of the state of Ohio, and you'll definitely have my vote if you do.
My support.
Appreciate that.
How can the state get involved in the Funk Museum Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, plus from the educational piece?
Sure. I think when I look around the country, I look at cities that are thriving. They usually have a pretty strong music scene and an entertainment scene, and I think having something like the Funk Music Hall of Fame here helps us focus on that, help us focus on the energy, on the history of some of the great bands that we've had, from the Ohio Players to our own living legend Keith Harrison and the groups that he's been in, but also sort of be a spark to try to recapture that entertainment edge here in Dayton and draw not just entertainment venues, but other businesses in, and that's something that I think the state would want to participate in and try to help do in order to grow economic growth in Dayton. But I think it needs to be centered in some part around a strong, vibrant entertainment scene, and I just believe real strongly that the Music Hall of Fame could be the center for recapturing that.
Well, you know, we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, we have one Hall of Fame in Akron, and I'm sure both of these entities have an economical value and maybe even educational piece. So we should probably have one here as well. So
sure.
We'll be looking to get your support. Keith Harrison, my friend.
Yes.
For many, many years. Keith and I go back to Neanderthal days. back to the early days of Phaso. Back to the early days. Keith gave me the honor of walking out on stage and emceeing his shows back in those days, and had a great time. Keith, you are with the organization. You're on committees and whatnot for the Funk Music Hall of Fame, and you are involved directly in the educational piece. I know for a fact that when I was at Central State, you and I did a project together when you were at your last place of employment. How do you fit into all this, and why is it important?
I think the way I'm going to fit in is going to be very detrimental to not only with programs, educational programs, but also connecting those other groups that are out there that can come in and be a part of the Museum Hall of Fame. from the educational piece, there's programs, technology programs now, music and computers using technology that the kids need to be up on, because that's where music has gone to, to software and animation, plugins, software plugins and things of that nature. So I can connect the kids and other artists who are into that to this type of technology that the museum will need to have in place to be, not only current, but moving forward in the future.
Well, and I know you'll give it 100% because I know your background and I know how talented you are and how blessed you've been over the years in this music business and having the staying power that you've had. Commissioner, you and I have a history. 2 histories, as a matter of fact. We're fraternity brothers, but I worked with your father for 18 years at Wilberforce University. Right. And every time I would see him in the hall, I would say, "How's the commissioner doing?" A big smile came on his face. "How you doing?" "Well, he's running the city." Give us a little bit about your background and how you got into where you are today.
My background is one of I've always been active, and I think like a lot of young people, which is why I'm excited about the Funk Museum Hall of Fame, is that it gives an opportunity for people who are active, like most young people. You have a lot of energy, and I was fortunate my father and my mother kind of steered that energy in positive directions. So when I was younger, it was mostly athletics. Through college, it was athletics. After college, I got involved with a lot of community activities, types of things where you help homes, you paint houses for homes, or get involved in programs to help young people learn about banking,
grassroots
business.
things.
Those are a lot of things I got involved with, and then it just kind of morphed itself into being a member of the school board, and then now being a member of the commission. But if you go back to the root, it's just a person with a lot of energy trying to use that energy in a positive way.
You also have a banking background.
Right. I've been a banker for 20-some years, and really enjoy that. But again, banking, the great thing about banking is it gives you an opportunity to be involved in the community. To be a good banker, you need to know the community which you are working in.
Excellent. Again, Representative Strahorn, you don't know this, but I was a candidate for state representative in 1984.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Endorsed candidate.
Okay.
Challenged Ed Orlett. And didn't win, did 12,000 votes, but went through the process, understood and understand the process. How'd you get involved in the politics and to where you are today?
Honestly, for me, it was more happenstance. I mean, I'm an aviation major from Ohio State.
Okay.
And really expected to be in the military. My brother talked me into moving to Dayton for 3 months 25 years ago. And I just stayed. And he was volunteering in politics, so I started volunteering in politics, and one thing sort of led to another. I'm kind of like Joey a lot in that whatever I do, I kind of want to be good at it and put a lot of energy back. But our history actually goes back to my brother Ron used to DJ at the Central State radio station and used to own Glass House Records. And so my connection to music through my older brothers is tremendous. My oldest brother is 14 years older than me. So even as a kid, I used to get to listen to all this music, jazz, R&B, but a lot of funk too.
Right.
Ron used to do concerts and concert consulting, and I know Keith knows my brothers.
Jerry Dickerson.
Yeah, and so I was exposed to all of this music at an early age. Used to work in the record store sometimes, and Zapp and Roger used to come in and do promotions, and so.
So
our
it's
history,
in your blood.
it's in the blood, and
That's
our history actually goes back further than that, and so I'm really excited about the notion of having this here in Dayton.
The term of state representative is what, a 4-year term now?
We run every 2 years, and there's a term limit of 8. So,
8, okay.
You can do a maximum of 8, but you have to run every 2 years.
Every 2 years. And the term for
4 years.
4 years. Okay. Both of you guys, I must commend you. Do a super job for us at the state and at the city level.
Thanks,
I see you guys on TV all the time, and you're always out there pounding the gavel and keep doing what you do. Keith.
And the term for music is forever.
That's right.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Keith, you've been into it forever, all the way back to grade school. I came to recognize Keith when he was in high school. Keith spent some time in the Air Force, and then from his associated with the Ohio Players, segue into Faisal. Give us a little bit about your background, Keith.
Well, grew up on a farm out in Jefferson Township, and first band started was called the Medallions,
Okay.
which became Phase 3 and then Phase O, the O representing Ohio, when the late Clarence Satchel signed us to She Records. And we were able to open up for the Ohio Players and all that's when they was really hot with Fire and Skin Tight, and people didn't really know who we were. We had a big hit, Riding High, which was the song that launched us and got us out there. And it's one of the top 10 songs today that is being sampled by, top rappers. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for Clarence Satchel giving us that springboard to get out there. Then after 10 years with Faisal, I hooked up with Heatwave, played 4 years with Heatwave under the leadership of Johnny Wilder, the late Johnny Wilder. And then after 4 years with Heatwave, I was recruited into the Daz Band out of Cleveland. And in 1982, we won a Grammy Award for the song Let It Whip. So I've been around the block. I've also toured with Morris Day and the Time, group Low Key out of Kansas, and several other bands. So that's why I think I can be key to pulling all these groups in and having some kind of participation with the Museum Hall.
So
Hall
you
of Fame.
you was almost a farmer?
Yeah, I was all, and it's
High
still,
tech farmer.
it's still
He's
in
been
me.
out there.
It's still in me. Because I love the country. I
Yeah.
love the country. I really love the country.
Keith, you are a very, very talented musician. You write, you produce, you sing. What are you doing? Are you doing any current projects today?
Well, I'm currently working on my first solo project. People ask why you wait so long. One, you got to have confidence. All my life I've been in bands, so that was kind of a security blanket. You playing in a group, but my spirit finally came to me and said, it's time. And there's no better time, so I'm almost finished with an R&B soul CD. It's really, I think it's going to be hot. I'm getting great feedback from around the country about some of the snippets I've sent out. So I'm going to mix it in
You still
DC.
working on tracks now?
I got one more song to finish up.
Okay.
How many's going to be on the CD?
10.
10.
You
10
need anybody like to play a cowbell or
Or a little
tambourine?
backup singing,
No, you don't want the backup singing part.
Yeah, we got to leave the back. Give him the cowbell or something.
I can do a cowbell or something. I mean, that's my dream too.
Yeah, the cowbell, that cowbell is an important piece of music. Seriously.
Commissioner, what's new at the city of Dayton? I mean, you've got a new commissioner with Jeffrey Mims on, and he's the junior, and then you've got the senior commissioner with yourself and what's my brother's name that's been there for 200 years?
Dean?
Yeah, Dean Lovelace. And every time I see Dean, he says, "I'm going to retire next year." And next year never
He's
comes.
officially, in fact, it was great. Jeff Mims, who actually also said he wanted to participate and be a part of the Funk Music Hall of Fame. He'll be a great asset.
Sure he will.
As
He's a good
his
brother.
ties to the state plus local and all his education.
He's kind of following the same. You come from a school board.
I don't feel comfortable saying that he's following me.
I know a little bit about both of the history.
He's a frat brother of ours also.
Yes, sir.
He was my teacher actually.
Was he?
In high school.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was a sophomore in high school. So I kind of look up to him as a mentor. So to call him junior commissioner is hard for me to say. So,
I understand.
He's always got that respect from me because he's just done so much to me in the community.
What does the city commission actually do? I mean, what are their
So
main
you asked about
objectives?
some of the projects we're working on now. What are we proud of right now? The things that we're really happy about. the jobs that are coming to this community.
Okay.
You know, and that's a joint effort. That's not solely the city commission, but certainly we play a role in helping to bring jobs to this community.
Sure.
But, you know, we've got a lot of development organizations, along with just some good companies that are growing and doing well, but it's nice to see jobs coming to this community. Some directly in Dayton, some around Dayton, but the great thing for me as a Dayton City Commissioner is our Dayton residents will have an opportunity to participate and hopefully win some of these jobs. We all know that, you know, the more jobs we can create, and you know, jobs take care of a lot of ills in all of society. So,
Well, one beautiful thing about you three brothers is that many of our young African-American males don't have role models, especially a lot of the kids in the Dayton school system. You know, they look up, in my opinion, sometimes to the wrong people,
Sure.
and they emulate some of the things that these people do from that perspective. But I see three brothers sitting here, and, you know, two politicians and a musician that could be excellent role models for our kids in the city of Dayton. Not just black kids, but, you know, all kids, but primarily some of the young black males. Representative Strahorn, what do you do at the state?
Yeah, a lot of there's some similarities, but you know, some people say nobody lives in the state, right? Everybody lives in a city or a town, and so we're really there to try to make sure our cities and towns and local communities are more successful. We have a budget that invests in those things, that try to help cities, counties, townships attract jobs, attract people, invest in the services that those folks use, and make us just a stronger place for people to live, work, and play. But to be more specific, let's just take education as an example. I mean, the state's responsible for developing the formula that funds all our school districts and our schools to make sure our kids have an opportunity to get a decent education. And that's a constitutional responsibility of the state.
Okay.
And really, you know, arguably the only thing that we're constitutionally responsible for doing. But we also invest in things like Medicaid to make sure that if you're not affluent, or if you don't have insurance through your employer, if you're poor or working poor, that you still have access to making sure that if you get sick, that you can get treated and get decent health care. We invest in things that try to drive economic development, or work through our tax policy to make it more advantageous for a company to move here or for a company to be able to grow. And so there are a host of a lot of little things in there in terms of service to folks, but those are some of the big things that we do.
Excellent, excellent. Keep doing what you do.
Appreciate that.
Keith, you, and I know you're probably already doing this. We talked to Janetta Warren, who was one of the backup singers for Zap. 35 years. She's been off the radar screen for 35 years, and she's back in the studio presently. And then we talked to Tom Lockett, formerly with Slave, through Skype this morning. But one of the things that is brought up a lot about the business of show business. And many young people that get in, I see some snippets on TV about some groups wanting to be in the business, and I saw a young lady on The Voice that was from Dayton, Ohio, and I was really kind of let down with what I saw. I just don't think that there was just my professional look at it. I just don't think there was. I mean, you know, when you go on national, you go to win. You go to, you know, and I didn't see that. We need to get them involved, and I'm sure you will. These two guys are in politics, so if somebody wants to be in politics, I'm sure they'll bring them in under their wings. But we need to get them involved in understanding publishing and understanding record contracts and things of this nature, so they won't end up like so many of our Dayton groups that was all show and no business, because it's called show business. And many of the Dayton groups, I lived it, I was there with them, and I saw the climb to the top and the fall to the bottom. And partly it was because they were not educated to the management of all that money they had. I witnessed it at Central State. You know, when we, and I'm making, you guys kind of joke when I, kind of laugh when I say this, we had football players with 0.01 GPAs. and go to the Dallas Cowboys and get $12 million contracts,
Right.
you know, and win 2 Super Bowls back to back. I was there. I lived it with these kids. But there was something missing. The in-between was missing because you go from nothing to $12 million.
Right.
Remember we talked about this at the education
Right,
meeting,
right.
how important, and by the way, you said politician, I'm also a banker. So
Yeah, that's
for me,
exactly right.
the banking side and financial management is extremely important to me. We actually talked about this at our education committee meeting a couple Saturdays ago, where the music is great. We've had some incredibly talented and successful folks, but what we see in both athletics and in the music industry is sometimes our young people aren't learning the financial literacy piece.
Right.
And to the degree that we could include or infuse financial literacy into the education piece with the Funk Museum, we think that would be really powerful.
Because there's so many, there's a, and I'll get to you, Keith. There's a story that's being written now about a guy that some of you may know or may not know, and I just received an email from the relative that lives in Springfield. His name is Henry Allen. And Henry Allen is the former president of Cotillion Records. And he came up through the ranks. He was stock clerk and then became president of the subdivision of Atlantic, which was Cotillion Records. During my tenure at WDAL, I developed relationships with record company presidents, Bruce Lundvall with CBS, Solar Music, Dick Griffey, Barry Gordy, and Henry Allen. I could call Henry Allen and say, look, I got somebody out of Dayton, Ohio that I want you to listen to. All I wanted him to do was listen to it. And then one group that he signed was Slave. And so a story is being written about him as we speak today. But Slave, great music group, just like you alluded to, but didn't have the business side of, and it's not a criticism. Even Lockett said, he said, man, we were so young, we just didn't know.
Right.
Somebody puts a contract in front of you and some dollars in front of you, and all you want to do is go out on stage and perform, or what you going to do? You're going to sign the contract, you probably won't even read it, you know, and go out on stage and perform. And so the educational piece that you alluded to, that you're involved in, is going to be so important from that standpoint of from the Funk Museum, Hall of Fame, and Exhibition Center.
Well, I think one of the educational pieces that needs to be put in place, what's missing from a lot of the artists out there today is artist development. And see, with all these shows like American Idol, The Voice, America Got Talent, you're throwing people out there before they go through any artist
Well,
development.
that's what I was saying. That's
And
exactly what I was talking about.
there's, you know, and a lot of them are embarrassing themselves, you know, from really in them there's
Because
some
they're not
type of
prepared.
great talent,
And
but they're not
Are they
been-
embarrassed to ask? Or
And
they-
you're talking
They
about
don't know.
And you're talking about the craft too, not
Right.
just the business part of it,
Exactly.
but the way Barry Gordy used to bring a talent
artist
along that
development.
you have to behave a certain way, you
Right.
have to dress a certain way,
Right.
you have to carry yourself,
Yeah.
you have to sell this a certain way. That's
Yeah.
missing from.
I remember an incident, and Barry Gordy is a genius, that on some weekends he would call and ask me to come up to Motown. And I was just excited. I'd get in my car and drive all the way to Detroit. And one afternoon, I went into Motown, and the secretary's desk was like 12 feet high in the air. So she looked down on you. And of course, you had to announce who you were. And I told him who I was, and she buzzed, and the elevator opened, and I went and got on the elevator. And these 3 guys jumped on the elevator with me. I mean, they just came out of nowhere. So it was 4 of us on the elevator, and it was only supposed to be 1. And this monster came out from behind this curtain. He was like 8 feet tall. And he looked at me, and I said, and he grabbed all 3 of them. He didn't hurt them. He grabbed all 3 of them, picked them up, and carried them off. And then I went on upstairs, and I had a chance to go in the studio and watch Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson and the Miracles and the Four Tops and the Temptation. I mean, and I'm in awe watching these because they were so professional.
Right.
But Barry Gordy also got them to understand, because Smokey's coming to Dayton, I'm told.
April 27th, I think.
Yeah, in April to the Schuster Center.
Right.
And I'm also, but he taught them the business. You know, that little bitty house, Motown, was a business there, and he taught those guys how to understand the business as a record company president. And I think that's important because that's part of the success of being successful out there, because it's not easy.
I think that, again, that's a role that I'm hopeful that the museum will be able to play a role in,
Right.
because, again, it's not just for musicians, but I see it with athletes too. But if in fact the museum could add that piece to it, that's a differentiator that I don't think the musicians are getting anywhere else. You know, my kids go to Stivers, and there are some kids at Stivers that are incredible musicians.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure anybody's talking to them about, if you make it big,
Right.
this is the financial
It's
literacy
important.
piece that you need to be aware of.
Exactly. It would be, it's nice to understand, even if you're not participating in that part of it, but at least to understand it. I use a guy that comes into mind that's from Ohio that I'm told is worth about $20 million, comes from Springfield, Ohio. His name is John Legend.
Heard of him.
And I'm seeing that he understands how the business works.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of seeing that. He hadn't fallen on his face. I'm not hearing anything negative. You know, he's out there in the mainstream. He's doing well. And to me, that's a kid that has understood the business, because when somebody puts one of them big contracts in front of you, you've got to know the language of that. And you should not necessarily always just depend on your attorney to read it to you, because they don't always tell you all the nuances in it. You know, so and I admire kids like that, especially kids that come out of our area that have that staying power in this business. Keith, did you have? We have about 4 more minutes, gentlemen.
No, I'm really excited about the museum, and I can't wait, the day that it will launch, to be a part. It's just an honor to be a part of this.
I think it's something that we probably can continue to try to bring more people on board with. I think the more educators hear about the opportunities here, I think they will get excited. You know, right now in education, STEM is the big word: science, technology, engineering, and math. But as we talked about, STEAM needs to be the word, where we add A for arts and athletics. And I think that will help to keep the kids engaged. So I see a big role they can play here.
And I'm hoping that the existence of this Hall of Fame attracts musicians, existing musicians who are very successful, to come participate in this and help build this this center of entertainment in Dayton that attracts a lot of people and really enhances the quality of life here in Dayton. And Dayton used to be a place where people would travel from all around to come have a good time and enjoy themselves and listen to music and go out and dance. And I think this could be the spark to return Dayton to that kind of place, that people will come from Indianapolis and from Columbus and Cincinnati and Detroit and come here and have a good time. So I'm looking forward to the
Dayton
success.
has a recognition for music. When you think of, I once mentioned to you, and I have a history at the city of Dayton because I was a mail clerk right out of high school. So I enjoy going into Mayor McGee's office and taking the mail. But in 10 seconds or less, leave us with something for our audience, Commissioner.
Well, you know, if I had to leave something, I would say that look forward to this. This is a big deal, and let's not be afraid to dream big. You know, one thing that I've been a little disappointed in over the last 5-10 years is I think that we as a community have become a little complacent. I love this idea because it's right here is an example of dreaming big. And just like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is huge in Cleveland, this could be extremely huge right here in Dayton, Ohio.
Representative, 10 seconds or less.
Jobs are an important thing for a person to live a certain quality of life, but music is something that feeds your soul. That's the thing that makes you happy. And so I know this is going to be a big part of Dayton's future in making sure that people aren't just living and surviving, but really enjoying the quality of their life.
Keith?
Music will never die.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the Funk Chronicles. I'm your host, Dr. Turk Logan. We've had the esteemed City Commissioner, State Representative, and musician Keith Harrison. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.